What is happening, people? Welcome to the Breakaway Podcast. We got a very special episode today. We got one of the biggest badasses I think it's ever sat in this studio, Michael Chandler from the UFC. Welcome.
I'll take it, man. You know, it's a good compliment. Thank you, man. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm definitely not as much of a badass as you, so I won't give myself that crown.
Don't worry, I'll get better.
But there's so much I know I want to talk about with you, but we got to talk about America Fest. You're going to be there.
Yes,
correct?
sir. Yep.
I can't wait. We're going to have some major sports stars there. Michael Chandler's going to be there. We got Cameron Hayes, Super Bowl champion Steve Weatherford's going to be there as well. Go to teepusa.com/AmericaFest, and you can use promo code Jon. If you use that, Michael, it's Jon.
Jon. No H.
No H at all. You can get 25% off.
Yes.
We'll set you up with a free ticket anyway.
Thank you.
So don't
you.
even
You know
worry
what?
about it.
Thank you.
I got you. But let's dive right on in. Let's just say the bell's ringing. We're in the octagon right now. Let's go back to UFC 268. I think, in my humble opinion, I think that was the fight of the year.
A lot of people have said that. Yeah, I mean, it was a good one. It kind of had everything, you know. I mean, and we knew that. Justin Gaethje, heck of a competitor. The guy was fighting. We both said, and he and I talked about this after the fight. He and I are men of our words. When a lot of times in mixed martial arts, there's a lot of blunder, a lot of claims being made before you step into the octagon, and then sometimes the fight's a little bit lackluster. We knew what we were going to get when it was me versus Justin Gaethje stepping into the cage. Not to mention at Madison Square Garden on one of the biggest cards of the year. So the fight had everything. It was a lot of fun, and we went after it.
What's that mentality like? Because you're jumping into Madison Square Garden. They've had some of the most legendary fights. Like I know I have some of these here, like Frazier Ali, Lewis Holyfield. You got Sugar Ray versus LaMotta. It's a legendary venue. And I think it was, you guys had maybe the 4th largest crowd ever at Madison Square Garden. What is that feeling like fighting in front of all those crazy fans?
It's crazy. I mean, so, you know, when you get into, as an athlete, or especially more specifically as a fighter, you want to fight on big stages against big names with big opportunities, big implications on the line. And Madison Square Garden is that big venue. Fighting Justin Gaethje for the number one contender spot, that is the big opportunity, you know? So, man, it was crazy. We were talking, off camera before. I didn't hear my coaches say one thing. It was so loud in there. It was basically, I was out there by myself. It was me versus Justin Gaethje, and there was no coaching. There was really, I got coaching in between rounds whenever they would come to the stool. But man, it was so cool. And it was, you try not to get caught up in the nostalgia. I mean, those names you just mentioned, I mean, I'm warming up in the same locker room as Muhammad Ali.
Yep.
I'm walking the same walk out to the battlefield as Mike Tyson, literally fighting within feet of these legends, some of the greatest and most biggest sports icons on the planet in history. So you try not to get too caught up into it, because you still have to keep your heart rate where it needs to be, your mindset where it needs to be. You need to be prepared to go out there and perform. But it was, I think after the fight, it kind of all set in. Like that was, and even leading up to it, it felt historic. You know, the posters with, all of our names, we're signing them. The whole week just felt like we were about to embark on something truly historic. And my fight, I think, was, I got fight of the night. The UFC gives out a bonus for
100% deserve that.
So that was good. So to have fight of the night on one of the biggest cards of the year at the world's most iconic arena was definitely a feather in my cap. And it's, I love fighting. I'm glad to have a little bit of time off now out here in Arizona, spending some time with my family around the pool. But it was definitely a cornerstone of my career thus far.
Well, some well-deserved little R&R out here. I know you and the family went up to Sedona. You got a beautiful family, by the way, too. But with this card, this was, a lot of people have just compared this to maybe like a Rocky Balboa fight. It was an absolute war out there, just trading punches. And then I know you're just a big wrestling guy, so you're trying to get people on the ground, but you gave people an unbelievable fight that I know I'll never forget. And so now that we're a few weeks removed from that, how are you feeling after that fight? Are you feeling optimistic? Because obviously as a fighter, you're always thinking, what's next?
Yeah, it's hard. Unfortunately, I wish I could turn it off, because I mean, as soon as the fight gets over, and one of the greatest things you can ask for in sports, or in fighting in general, is even if you take a loss, it still feels like a win. And that's exactly what this one was, because people won't always remember the wins and losses. They might not even remember the full entirety of the fight, but they're always going to remember how you made them feel. And I think what me and Justin Gaethje did, and through my performance, through his performance, through that fight as a whole, it made people feel something. It reminded them why they're drawn to mixed martial arts, and why they love combat sports, why they love the UFC, why they buy their pay-per-views, why they go to Madison Square Garden, why they pay their hard-earned money to go watch these fights. So to make people feel something was amazing. But as soon as the fight was over, I was, as I said, it felt like a win. Stock just went through the roof. So I think extremely optimistic that 2022 is going to bring some big fights, big names, big cards, big opportunities. And because of this fight, even though it was a loss, I'm not going to fight for the title next, of course, because I didn't win the fight. But once again, people want to feel something. So whether you're fighting for a title or not, people are going to tune in now to watch my fights for sure.
Yeah, it was just trading punches back and forth.
Yeah,
and it was just like, are these guys going to be alive at the end of these 5 rounds?
And body-wise, I'm definitely still recovering, which is, me and Justin Gaethje both went to the hospital. The UFC was like, as soon they carted us or, ushered us back there.
I love the video when you're in the ambulance, too. You're trying to do that Yoda.
Yeah, I was like, well, I'm going to go live, but I don't want people to see my face because I don't want to scare any children that might be watching. So I did the little Yoda thing, but UFC was like, hey, go see the doctors at, the on-site doctors, and we're going to put you straight in ambulances. You're going to go get checked out. Because when you have a war like that, that is one thing about the UFC. It is the epitome of spectacle and bigness in this sport. Yep. It's the pinnacle. And they truly do take care of their fighters. They want to see you healthy and to live to fight another day because they know we have families and whatnot. So like you're getting in the ambulance, you're going right away. I was like, I don't want to go. I'm fine. Yeah, I'm limping, and I need some stitches, but my wife can stitch me up when I get home.
I feel like that's that classic. When you're growing up, you're playing like Pop Warner or whatever, just young guy fighting. It's just like, are you hurt or are you injured?
Exactly. Yeah. And I was like, I got all x-rayed and all that kind of stuff. I didn't really have any injuries, luckily, thank God. But Justin Gaethje limped to his ambulance. I limped to mine. We ended up in hospital beds right next to each other. We took pictures. I mean, that's the thing, man. It's what people love mixed martial arts too. I mean, of course there's some animosity. Of course there's a trash talk, but you can't share the octagon on a world stage like that and this fight go down in history. For we're going to look back 20 years from now and say, man, this was the biggest fight of my life, possibly, or at least the most entertaining one of my life. You have so much respect for the guy that you share the octagon with, because without a dance partner, you can't make magic, right? So, amen. He brought it, I brought it. We both wouldn't be denied that night. He got the nod, I lost, but still feels like a win, and we live to fight another day.
Well, you could feel the magnitude of the fight, that's for sure. And that's something that's just going to send ripples through UFC for many, many years to come. Yeah. But I think you might know what my next question is. We're always talking about what's next. We've heard the name Connor McGregor brought up. Is that happening?
I can't confirm if it's going to happen. Connor's in a position right now where he needs to heal up for sure.
That was nasty, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, obviously Connor's leg was a nasty injury. I'm going to need some time, obviously. And I think the timeline works out really well. I think he's going to need to come back middle of next year. I'd like to come back middle of next year, take some time off, spend some time with my family, let my body heal up a little bit. Just get better, get better as an athlete. And then obviously number one, take care of my health. But yeah, I mean, Connor said he wants to fight. I've said I want to fight. The fans are going crazy about the potential.
Hell yeah,
of the
I
fight.
want it too, so Michael. That would be amazing.
It's a possibility, but with Connor, I think Connor's in a position where he holds the cards in a lot of ways. So he might come back and fight someone else. Who knows? But there's no doubt that Chandler versus McGregor in 2022 would be a huge fight. The UFC would love to put it on. Connor and his team seem like that they might want to put it on. So I'm just going to wait here and wait for that phone call.
Seems like you got the support of the UFC and the fan base and everything too. You weren't just some other guy. It's like, oh, I just want my chance at Connor McGregor, especially after the performance you just put on.
Yeah, and that's what it is. I mean, I've built my life and reputation on being a man of my word and saying yes to opportunities when a lot of people were saying no. I came into the UFC. I didn't want to tiptoe around the top 10, top 20. I said, hey, I want to come in to fight a top 5 guy right away. And that's not because I'm entitled to that and I want a top 5 guy. I want to come into the UFC right now after fighting 12 years outside the UFC. I want to come in and I want to prove either I am who I say I am or I'm not. And then knocking out Dan Hooker, who was number 5 at the time, and then getting the title shot, fighting for the title, and now fighting Justin Gaethje. I think I've proven that I am who I say I am. And it was okay for the people who didn't believe it, that I was just the guy from the outside of the UFC coming in. I wasn't going to be able to hold my weight in the division. So I think I've proven that I am who I say I am. And I've also proven that I haven't seen a brake pedal in 13 years. You know, I keep my foot on the gas. I'm there to entertain. I'm there to enjoy the fruits of my labor and enjoy the gifts that God has given me, you know. So I'm so happy that I got 2 capable arms, 2 capable legs to be able to go out there and do something that makes people feel something, you know, because I am just a small guy from a small town who was taught to do small things, who somehow broke the mold of what I was supposed to accomplish. Somehow got to a world stage and, you know, one of the most looked at and seen fighters on the planet. So it's not something I take lightly, and I'm just excited to keep on doing this thing.
Before we dive into that a little bit more, because obviously the way you look at your opportunities now is you're a blessed man. Yeah. You don't feel like you deserve these, but I will tell you, you deserve these. And I'm sure your whole fan base will too. And it's so fun to watch you night in, night out. And like, I'm grimacing every time I see you take a hit or something. But before we move into that and your mindset and the way you've really been able to come from a walk-on to top 5 in the UFC is incredible. How do you feel like your style compares to Connor McGregor's?
I think I think we're both fast starters. I think I'm more of a, like I said, foot on the gas, get in your face.
All gas, no brakes, Michael Chandler.
No brakes. Feel my presence, feel my pressure, feel my power right away. Whereas Connor is a little bit more wide stance, in and out, great at counter striking, which for me is honestly probably the most dangerous fighter I could fight, because there's nothing worse in mixed martial arts or boxing than the shot that comes that you didn't see coming. You know, when you see a punch coming straight at you and you can brace for impact, it bodes well, and you can kind of usually take it. But Connor does a really good job of getting right out of the way and then hitting you with something. His performance, his knockout of Eddie Alvarez, I think it was 4 years ago at this point at Madison Square Garden, was probably to me, the cleanest, most impressive counter-strike 4-punch combination I've ever seen in my entire life. So I think our styles match up really well. Obviously, I'm more of I do have a higher pedigree in wrestling. Yeah. People would expect me to go out there and try to take him down, but you also saw how Chad Mendez took him down, lost the first round, lost the second round, came back, finished him in the 3rd or 4th. Connor is probably one of the most mentally tough, most mentally confident men on the planet. And that's a scary guy to fight.
And man, can he talk.
He can talk. and the most beautiful thing about him is that he's just sold his whiskey company, or his stake in a whiskey company, for $160 million. The man doesn't need to do a thing the rest of his life, yet he's choosing to still fight, you know, and that's a scary guy, a guy who is driven by more than just the money. As well as the fact that, you know, for me, the reason I want to fight him too, of course, everybody always says, well, you just want the money fight. You want the red panty night, as they call it, you know, because once again, he talked and called it a red panty night, which is an awesome metaphor, if you will. But I want to be in big fights. I want to have big opportunities on big stages, and fighting Connor McGregor, that's the epitome of huge in the sport. And the fact that we share the same weight class, the fact that our timelines work out well, that's why I want the opportunity. If I don't get it, you know, I'll keep on fighting, and we'll see what happens. But I think right now is the time.
Let's go back to mindset. I feel like you got a chip on your shoulder always, because you are a guy that was a walk-on, and then you turn into an All-American, and then you qualified for nationals every single year you were there, correct? Yep. And then you went from Bellator to now top 5 in the UFC. You're a guy that's just like, I don't care where I come from. I don't care if you know me, but you will get to know me, win or lose. Yeah, and I think that's what people really, really appreciate about you.
Well, yeah, you know, and truthfully, what I have had to build this body, build this mindset into what it is. But I'm just a product of a secretary and a union carpenter. My parents scraped and clawed and worked 2 and 3 jobs to make sure myself and my two younger brothers had every opportunity. I'm sitting here today because of the hard work of Mike and Betty Chandler. And I will always stand on that. So I always just looked at my dad. He would come home in his white carpenter jeans and his work boots, drywall dust all over him, knowing that he put in a hard day's work. He was up at 5 a.m. the next day and got after it 6 days a week. So for me, I was bred to do that. If I wasn't doing it in sports, I would be doing it in business, or I would be doing it in some area, whatever vocation I chose. And I think, more than anything, there's just so many parallels to my story, because you're going to get knocked down. You're going to get, you're going to be down in the valleys. You're going to get to the peak, and then you're going to get knocked back down to the valley. And it's the true character and testament of who a man is how he comes back from losses and how he continues to build himself. I was a walk-on at the University of Missouri, Division I wrestling. I could have went to some smaller schools and got a scholarship offer, which my parents didn't have a lot of money, so I probably should have taken those scholarships to take the financial burden off of them.
What was mom and dad saying?
Yeah, they were like, well, you know, hey, the Lindenwood University wants to give you, you know, a full ride. Why don't you go? And there was just something in me. I was like, man, God, why do I feel like I need to go Division I? And I was willing to go Division I at the University of Missouri, ride the bench, end up getting hurt or quit or just not make it. I was willing to brave the unknown and brave the uncertainty and even the embarrassment of not making it at the Division I level, and then having to come back to High Ridge, Missouri and say, well, guys, I failed. I was willing to do that. And because I took a chance on myself, took a bet on myself, ended up becoming an All-American and then fighting in Bellator. I could have stayed in Bellator. I was the big fish in a small pond. They loved me. They were taking great care of me, but there was something in me. And I would think about 40-year-old Michael, retired. Is that pillow going to feel like a 40-pound rough cinder block every single night? And I'm not going to be able to sleep knowing that I never took a chance to go to the UFC. And now here we are 14 months later. And this last 14 months has felt like 4 years. And, I've had some great opportunities, but I took a chance on myself. A small guy from a small town who kept believing in himself, pushing through the adversity, pushing through the losses, pushing through the doubts and the insecurities. And that small guy is still in me. I've just gotten really good at duct taping him to the basement of my mouth, of my mind.
Yep.
And I've just continued to press on, and God, man, it's a great life I get to live now.
Yeah, it sure is. And I think that goes back to your Connor McGregor comment. Like, you want the big time. You could give me these little fights here and there, and obviously the UFC, like, you have to earn it. You gotta show
every
Dana.
Fight in the UFC is big, luckily, like for the most part. But that big one it's almost just like it's kind of just not that it would be like the storybook ending, because I still got a lot of fights left in me, but it's the big stage that finally solidifies to all the people that have believed in me, all of my inner circle who has supported me and gotten me to where I am, how God has had me in the palm of his hand my entire life, and all the different relationships and all the different things that I've gone through, the seasons that felt like was where God put a period when really it was just a comma for me to keep on moving forward. And having that big fight would be something that would solidify to my fan base and the people that resonate with me. Little kids from outside of some small town somewhere in the middle of nowhere. That, man, if that guy can do it, then so can I. So you can't will these things into happening, but it would be a great opportunity.
Yeah, we can go down the road of just giving a huge shout out to Dana White and keeping the UFC going, especially too. I know Gaethje was saying, like, I'm so pumped to be in front of a bunch of fans, Madison Square Garden. We just got out of a whole pandemic. So many people are just still living in fear. So the fact that you guys were able to put on a huge show for that, but I want to go off of the spiritual toughness, because there's so many people that can take a beating. Even just regular Americans right now, I feel like so many people have taken a beating over the last few years, politically, in their careers, with their friendships and families. But what is so uplifting to me is seeing people like you that are mentally and spiritually strong. Clearly, you're physically strong, but people need that mental and spiritual toughness in order to get through this, not only in the octagon, but through life.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's the thing. I mean, it's almost as if I'm speaking from a position of, well, look at how big you are, fast you are, strong you are, athletic you are, look how skilled you are. But really, without the belief in myself, without working extremely hard, waking up every single morning and pounding the pavement, punching the clock, even though I don't have a physical time clock I'm punching every day. I'm putting the miles in, literally and figuratively. I'm putting in the work. And then I'm surrounding myself with the right people. I'm surrounding myself with people that believe in me on those days that I don't believe in myself. I have 15 different people on my phone I can call right now in tears, like, hey, talk me off the ledge here. Why am I feeling this way? And they know exactly what to say and exactly how to love on me and pour into me to help me keep going. And that's what has been so sad and unfortunate, is I believe God created us for relationships. And what has happened over the last couple of years is we were taught to be afraid of people. We were taught to be not too close to people. We were taught we were afraid of your germs and my germs. And of course, there's different ways you can think about the whole pandemic thing or the whole coronavirus thing. But man, we were put on this earth to love on one another and physically be around one another and pour in to each other. And you can sit there on YouTube and you could hear it from a YouTube video of your favorite pastor, your favorite motivational speaker, but it's not the same as me and you sitting here looking you in the eyes and say, man, I love you and I promise you things are going to get better. Well, how can I help you? How can I be of service to you? And these are things that we've missed in so many different areas and so many different ways over the last couple years. And even my son and all of our children out there who have had to wear masks at school or be away from people, or be taught to, Zoom learning, which is just, not a great thing. It was a good alternative, I guess, but not healthy.
Yeah.
So being created for relationships, it's time that we take that back and we spend time with people, and we proactively reach out to people and say, hey man, let's go grab some coffee. Let's go grab some lunch. Okay. Hey, we can't get in over here. We'll go over here. Yep. Hey, we can't get into this restaurant. Let's go over to the park. Let's go do the things like normal human beings were created to do. And that's relationships and pour into one another. And I talk to my wife about this all the time. There's not a moment that I feel better about myself than when I can help another person. When I can go have coffee with somebody and I help you out with this, that, and the other thing. And I get back in my truck and I'm like, gosh, dang, man, I could go take over the world right now. And I didn't get help at all. You didn't help me at all. You didn't teach me anything. You didn't fix any of my problems. Yet, just like Zig Ziglar said, if you want anything in life, you can get anything you want in life if you will help enough other people get what they want in life. And that right there is proof is in the pudding that we were created for relationships. And you just the hard work mixed with surrounding yourself with the right people and just getting out there and continuing to grow as a human being.
So you want to live an active service, just a life of service. So that's just following Jesus's footsteps. Yeah. Like, I didn't come here to be served. I came here to serve. And I feel like is that how you want to be remembered?
100%. Yeah. I mean, I think on the surface level, definitely when people talk about legacy and they talk about how do you want to be remembered, I do want people to always remember that I was a small guy from a small town who never thought that I would make, even more than middle-class wages the rest of my life. And I somehow found myself in this position. And if I can do it, anybody can do it. And then also that guy, Michael Chandler, made me feel something by the way that he competed, the way he carried himself, the things that he said, and the masterpiece that he painted. And now that I've become a father too, I think about, I can sit here and tell my son Hap that I'm this and I'm that, and I did this and I did that. But it's so much more impactful when my son walks in here and has an interaction with you and you tell him about who his daddy is. Yeah. He walks in and someone at school says, hey, my dad was telling me about your dad. Hey, this, that, and the other thing about your dad. It's so much more impactful than me actually speaking it to him. So I want to live a life that is impacting people, and I'm with every single day, every single brush stroke on this masterpiece that I'm painting for him, that hopefully I can sit back and, just be quiet, and hopefully he knows exactly who I am and how I've impacted people through interactions with other people. And of course there's the internet, so I'm all over it as a professional fighter, and hopefully those things resonate with him and he grows to be the man that God intended him to be.
And you're a father of an adopted son. So some people might not know that. Can you tell us a little bit more about that adoption process and how that's been? Yeah.
So my wife, luckily, and it's such a blessing, she served in an inner city mission in Columbia, Missouri, where I went to college. And since she was 14, 15 years old, she always wanted to adopt. And we got together and, she started telling me about it. And it wasn't exactly like I was 100% on board right away, but it was like, well, I'm in love with you. So
babe, whatever you want to do,
I'm trying to marry you. So that's definitely something I'm open to. And then a couple years into marriage, we just felt God pulling on our heart, and we started praying about it more. And then all of a sudden people started coming into our lives where it just became abundantly clear that was the direction we wanted to go in. And then went through the process, a long process, a lot of different paperworks and background checks and all that kind of stuff you got to go through. And then, man, it happened so quickly for us. And then he is the most amazing young man on the entire planet. He's given me a new sense of purpose, a new sense of being. Every single morning I wake up, I get excited about being my wife Bree's husband, and my son Hap, his dad, and then fighter and entrepreneur and businessman, all that stuff after. And it's such an awesome thing. In order to accomplish the greatest things in life, you have to attach your why to your what. What I do is a cool thing. I fight in a cage for a living in front of millions and millions of people, and I can make a great living doing it. But attaching my why to that what I do has really taken my mindset, my spirit, and my body, my capabilities to the next level. So it's been so amazing, man. And it's being dad is probably the coolest thing I've ever experienced. And every single season, he's almost 5 now. Every single season brings about new and exciting things that we get to do together. It's a little bit sad when one season ends and all of a sudden he's speaking full sentences and he's doing all this. I'm like, dang, dude, just be a baby. And he's, you know, he's like tall for his age. So it's like he's almost as long as me. He's gonna be taller than me by third grade.
He's gonna start beating you up soon.
Yeah, man. So I'm like, dude, stop growing. So it's just man, it's so much fun being a dad. So.
And then too, you're so outspoken about your conservatism. Like, you're outspoken about your faith, and you're carrying an American flag with you after fights. How do you feel like that's resonated with fans, and especially now there's so much politics in sports? I know we cover that on the show all the time, and I tell people, I hate politics in sports, but if it's gonna be here, you're gonna hear the right side of it. Yeah,
well, and that's the thing. If it's gonna be there needs to be room for differing opinions. There needs to be room for both sides. There needs to be room for both ideologies or ideas. And for me, it always goes back to loving this country, loving the freedoms and the liberties that we take for granted more often than not. You know,
if there's any privilege, I think there's an American privilege.
Yeah,
and people take advantage of that way too much.
Yeah, you know, and we live in the greatest country on the planet, the greatest country ever assembled. And yeah, do we have our faults? Have we had our scars and our wounds and our bruises of the past? Are there certain things about our history that, you know, maybe would be better if they had not happened? Of course, but this is still the greatest country on the planet. And if you don't believe that, go spend some time in another country. Go find out why so many people are trying to come to this country, why they want to become an American. And this, I have a phenomenal life, and I've been given some great opportunities, and all of it goes back to living in the greatest country on the planet. So I think it's just, for me, above all else, just love for the country, love for its people, and love for us. The reason we're even able to talk about politics and sports is that we have the freedom to have our own ideas. And
what a beautiful thing.
Yeah, and there's conflicting ideas, and it can be thrown into sport. Maybe you don't want it in sports, maybe you do want it into sports, but either way, there's the liberty and the freedom to put it in sports by whoever chose to do it. And that in and of itself, even if you don't like it, is still a liberty that people are deserving of. So, man, more than anything, I just love this country. I love the flag. I love representing the United States, and being an American in the greatest country on the planet, and then continuing to rub elbows with and wear off on other people and have constructive conversations where we can talk about the direction of the country and the direction of these different issues at hand. And if we can all just have a conversation, things are a lot better.
Man, what a concept. Just sitting down and having a conversation.
Yeah, you know, even if we disagree, I mean, I have so many friends that disagree with me, and I have family members that disagree with me. I love them no matter what, and they still love me no matter what. But man, just those conversations and having an open dialogue and never ever suppressing any idea. Maybe you don't agree with it, but definitely don't suppress the idea.
Because what it seems like, especially too, we're around the holidays and so many people are going to spend time with their family, and it feels like all of a sudden things go 0 to 100 real quick, and then all of a sudden it's just like, we ain't talking anymore. Yeah. We're in the octagon here at the dinner table or in the living room.
Well, it's so funny too, because you know, ugly sweatshirts or ugly Christmas sweaters are like a thing, and we're maybe going to throw a party in Nashville for some friends and do some Christmas type sweaters. And it's funny, you can find some really ones like most likely to get drunk and talk politics. Like, it's like, I'm definitely not, I don't want to be that guy, but I was like, the concept of that sweater is absolutely hilarious, but it is true, you know, and a lot of times, you know, we hurt, or our tongue lashings are so much, just so much more rough with those people that we love the most, because we feel the most comfortable with them. So, I mean, that's even I think the greatest thing that we can do as conservatives as well is always go into every single one of those conversations with, no matter what, try to even understand the other side. Try to be the one that after that conversation, they're like, I don't know if I got him, because I didn't rattle him. I didn't. My goal here was to frazzle him and tell him he was wrong. And also be like, okay, you know, I appreciate your opinion, you know, and that's, you know, have by no means been great at that, but I'm working on it.
Well, how do you
work
think,
in progress.
We're all working on that.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Because I know, especially here at Turning Point USA, we have conversations all the time, but with a lot of like-minded people.
Mm-hmm.
We always have to remember that. And then once we get out of this little bubble we have here at HQ, we start to have these conversations online, and then hopefully some of these conversations with people in our church community, in any other community that we're in, and hopefully we can finish that off by having like a Gaethje and Chandler finish where it's like there's a mutual respect here, but not in the sense of, hey, I need to throw this elbow here, I need to do a little cheap shot here, and then hopefully we can come together. It's like, no, there's probably something I would ask you is, how can people be a warrior without shutting somebody down? So especially when it comes to like civil discourse, so many people, I know I can get caught up in it where it's like, all right, I have all this information about police brutality. I have all this information about COVID. I got all this information about how the right has done way more for the American people than the left. But if I'm going in with that mindset, I'm already not listening to this person.
Yeah, I mean, it's very easy to be hypocritical in the way that you're engaging in these conversations, right? Because ultimately, if you know the best path forward is to always try to find a common ground, yet you already have all of these different talking points and you already have your mind made up, which most people already have their mind made up going into a conversation anyway, and then you just do a linguistic jujitsu, to bring the fighting into it, linguistic jujitsu of us going back and forth on all these different things and all these different moves. And
that's probably another belt that Joe Rogan would like, a linguistic jujitsu
yeah,
belt.
He's a black belt. He's a black belt in linguistic jiu-jitsu. And just trying to peel back the layers and look at it from a 30,000 foot view instead of just being in the moment with your voice and with your agenda and with your mind already being made up, and I think even if you just peel it all the way back, no matter what, pretty much 100% of these people that you're speaking to here in this country is probably already a citizen of the greatest country on the planet, and they are Americans. And once again, like we said, whether you do or don't want politics in sports, the people who do want it have the right to insert politics into sports, and the people who are of different values than you or think differently than you, they have the right to feel that way. And peeling it back, that at the end of it all, and we 100% disagree on every single thing, we are still Americans. Yep. And the next morning you wake up an American, and tomorrow night you're going to go to bed an American, and I should love you for that. And everything changes with time and circumstance. There's a lot of different times where you're like, okay, you don't see it the way I see it now, but eventually you'll come around. And truthfully, I don't see it the way you see it now, but shoot, maybe I'll come around. Who knows? And that's always looking at yourself as a person of growth. Whether the growth right now you think something is 100% wrong, you might be only 50% wrong 6 months from now. Yep. Who knows? And I think that's the humility to admit that you're wrong and almost give ground instead of constantly running into a brick wall in every single one of those conversations.
Yeah, allow people to keep you accountable. That's what you're even saying. You had about 15 people you could call right now that can keep you accountable. You could bounce something off to them. They're going to give you some good spiritual backing of what they're giving you, and they have a solid foundation in a relationship with you. Say, hey, Michael, this is how I'm going to keep you accountable. This is how we can have better civil discourse. This is how you can be better in the octagon. And as we wrap this up, last thing for you, what's your number one goal as you head into this next year in fighting and then as a father?
I think it has been, for me, you're catching me at the tail end of 14 months that have been really much a whirlwind. I fought my last fight with Bellator in August of last year. And here I am just 15 months later, and I've already had 3 fights in the UFC, a world title fight, a fight of the year. I was the backup in October of last year. So I've had like 4 opportunities where I weighed in, 3 times when I fought. It's just been such a whirlwind, and I've been away from my family for so long. More than anything, it's almost a blessing that I need to heal up a little bit. I'm limping around and I'm still kind of hobbling around, and I need to, take some time off. It's a blessing because, sometimes we got to save ourselves from ourselves. I know if I was 100% healthy, man, I'd be training it again today. I'd be like, on my phone, reaching out to strength coaches and this and that, and like, I should be vacationing right now. I should be pulling myself away and spending time with the true things that are going to last. Those gold belts are awesome. There's 13 pounds of gold and leather, but eventually it tarnishes. But the things that aren't going to tarnish are my relationship with my wife, my son, my family. So just being more present, being more selective, and my wife and I have talked about that a lot over the last 6 months, 10 months. So is being selective. You know, you can't say, especially when you go from outside the UFC to inside the UFC and have these huge opportunities and the platform just grows like crazy. There's so many opportunities that if you say yes to every single one of them, you're eventually going to burn out, and you're eventually going to look back and regret the things you didn't say no to, you know? So just spending more time, more quality time. And then, as I said, continue every single day making decisions that are positive for my life and positive for my family, but also things that are going to be little breadcrumbs of a trail left to how to be a great man on this planet for my son to follow and my son to see, and the things that he hears and the things that he watches or the things that he gets poured into from other people. And then, you know, biggest goals for 2022, big fights, big opportunities, continue to make the impact that God has blessed me with. God has blessed me with some amazing gifts to be able to be on huge stages, huge opportunities, and just be a good steward of those gifts, because, you know, admittedly, there's moments where you take them for granted. There's moments where you forget why you started. There's moments you forget why you love what you do. Continuing to be so honed in and laser focused on my goals and how big of an opportunity I have, and with each one of those opportunities, making maximum impact and making people feel something with my opportunities, with my performances, with the way that I speak and the way that I act. So, and that's kind of been my goal for probably the last decade. I've always looked at this sport and my opportunity as a way for people to see me. You know, I'm not a guy who likes attention. I'm not a guy who loves people, you know, watching and talking about me and seeing me necessarily. But I know that it's impacting people. So make a huge amount of impact in 2022. And as we roll into the new year, being laser focused on how I can make people feel something extra special.
I can't think of a better way to wrap up this podcast. And I know you got to roll, but thanks you so much, too, because the way you use your platform, I think, should be just a foundation of how every athlete should use their platform. Just even having a conversation like this, there's way too many people that use their platform, the amount of followers and everything they have, to divide people. You're bringing people together. I love seeing you do that. And I appreciate you sitting down and having this conversation. You're going to hear a lot more from Michael Chandler when he gets to America Fest. You got to get tickets for that. Remember, tpusa.com/AmericaFest. Use promo code John without the H, baby.
Without the H, baby.
25% off. Michael, thanks so much, man.
Appreciate it, John. Thanks.